I am going to try my best to not make this video a rant. I'm going to genuinely try to analyze and discuss this topic. However, I'm making no promises. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, hi, my name is Zaria Smith, and I typically make commentary videos just like this one. Today's candle is currently boba tea. So, upon editing this video, me and Connor have come to the realization that my microphone was actually unplugged the entire time I was filming this video. So you can hear background noise, you can hear my dog shaking, and I am very, very sorry, but I do not have the time to refilm it, because I have work in the morning. Woo! So, I'm sorry. Won't happen again, hopefully, but enjoy the video, please. So, quick question. Are you an alpha male? Do you consider yourself to think that you are above women? Are you also by chance experiencing internalized racism? Or do you just have a dislike for Black women? And aside from specifically Black women, are you just a general misogynist in general? Well, if you checked a box onto any of these categories, you may be familiar with the Fresh and Fit podcast. What an introduction, right? I'm just going to show you guys some clips from the podcast specifically, so we can just kind of get a vibe for like what this podcast kind of provides for society, what it kind of gives to the people, right?
So if you take women by themselves with no men, the men are going to come in, they're going to invade, and they're going to either kill you off or turn you into slaves. The only reason women are able to exist is because they have men protecting them from other men that want to conquer. Men conquer. It's been that way since the beginning of time. I want you guys to always be in the position of dominance when you deal with women, because that's when women act right. When they are scared of losing you, that's when you get the blowjobs, that's when you get your dick sucked, that's when they respect you, that's when they wait on your instruction, etc. Because women are not suited for war. Period. You guys are not. I mean, you guys weren't really even able to enter the workforce until we gave you guys tampons. And men invented that too, by the way. A high-value woman does not exist without a man. There's no such thing as a high-value woman that's independent.
Right. So basically, yikes. So I don't know if you've been on Twitter recently or TikTok recently, or if you've seen kind of the clips and videos surrounding this podcast right now. This podcast has been garnering a lot of attention from the media, specifically for being so horrible. I'm really trying to like not be so, because I like to, kind of see where other people are coming from, and I like to kind of like analyze things, because this is a commentary channel and I like to learn some things, I guess. The Fresh and Fit podcast is hosted by or made by these two guys. The first one, he goes by Fresh Prince CEO, which when I discuss with you the type of podcast this is, that's going to make perfect sense why that's his name. And also Myron Gaines. So basically their podcast claims to teach about money, dating advice with women, and fitness and self-help type of vibes, which sounds wholesome within itself. Like, there are a lot of men these days on the internet who kind of struggle with trying to find ways to date women. They don't understand how to properly speak to a person, and having dating advice from someone who claims to have your best interest at heart and wants to help you be your best version of yourself, of course you'd want to listen to that in a podcast, and of course you would want to kind of discover what this podcast might be entailing, However, this podcast instead decides to just sprinkle in some misogyny and be like, why should a man even want to be with a woman in the first place? So this article states that the two men made this podcast, or they decided to make this podcast because they had a Zoom call with each other and then realized that they had similar ideas. These similar ideas being horrible. Sorry, we're trying to not be mean. We're trying not to bully people in this video. They decided that they had both been successful with women whatever that means, and they decided to partner up. Before I hear anybody in the comments telling me that you have no idea about this podcast and you're talking about them out of context, I think sometimes context doesn't matter in instances where you are literally talking about demeaning a black woman, referring to them as a Shaniqua.
I mean, hey, bro, if you want to date a bunch of Shaniquas, go for it, man.
LaQuisha.
Yeah, like me and Fresh aren't really down with the brown like that.
Man.
We ain't night riders.
Nah,
so
bro, I'm good.
Sometimes if they're red bone, but like in general, me and Fresh don't dabble in the dark. If you know what I'm saying.
Yep.
So I think that in terms of like that, context doesn't matter, but also I have listened to the podcast before and I've listened to a couple episodes actually, and I wish I could gain back the brain cells lost in listening to those podcasts. This is the suffering we go through to be a content creator, I guess, these days. I want to talk about the podcast hosts themselves. Firstly, I'm going to talk about Myron Gaines, whose real name is Amrao Fudul, I suppose. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. Myron Gaines is like his stage name in a way, And if you want to know what type of person he is, one of the captions on one of his Instagram posts, which I will have listed on the screen, is a picture of him looking, I guess like any man would. And the caption is, "My face when a bimbo says the wage gap exists because of sexism and the patriarchy." Right. Okay, so we're just gonna skim past that. We're just not even gonna address that. I just want you guys to hear what they proclaim to describe themselves as. They like to say that they are the world's #1 podcast, which pretty sure that's the Joe Rogan Experience. If you were to not include Spotify, I'm pretty sure it's the Crime Junkie podcast, but feel free to Google that and fact check me on that really quickly. They also say that they provide the quote truth to females, fitness, and finances. Love that alliteration. Don't love the using of women being called females, but again, with everything else I've shown you in this video, I guess it's of character to describe women as females. I think that on the surface level, this podcast, if you've never heard any of them speak before and you hear the concept of the podcast, I feel like you think like, oh, that's a pretty good idea for a podcast, is helping men deal with, issues regarding dating, finances, investment, fitness. I think it's something that's really positive, and I think that is something that is good. However, if you actually hear them speak, it's kind of like that one TikTok audio where it's like, she's so gorgeous when she opens up her mouth, it's like dirt. Like, I feel like that is like this podcast. Maybe I shouldn't be so negative, but like, I guess let's just talk about why I'm even talking about this podcast in the first place. So recently, I've been seeing on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, every social media ever, even Snapchat, little clips like on the E Online, like little Snapchat show, has been showing me clips from this interview that the Fresh and Fit podcast did with Brittany Renner. Brittany Renner is actually a fitness model, which I guess you could say like the Fresh and Fit podcast is about fitness in a way. So she kind of fits the guest protocol. She challenged these men in a way that I honestly, like, I have no notes. She left no crumbs. Like, it was iconic. We're just going to actually look at this video where she confronts the podcast. And I kind of want you guys to, one, get an understanding of like what this show is and what kind of makes it bad. But I'm also just going to give you guys just some context as to why everyone on Twitter is talking about this video and about this podcast. And there are actually even more clips that have been coming out about them, but I'll talk about that later.
Men and women, we're very different. We have opposing goals. Like, girls are trying to, get resources, time, attention out of guys. Guys are trying to get sex. And girls, a lot of the time, are trying to get what they need to get out of dudes without necessarily giving it up. And some girls are good at it, some girls aren't. And then there's other girls that are kind of models for that are good at finessing dudes.
So, first statement he says is that women want men for resources, men want women for intercourse. I don't really know how to feel about that statement. As a woman who happens to be attracted to men on the occasion, I think that it's really messed up to kind of reduce women to literally nothing. And I'm a feminist. I believe in equality. I believe in doing whatever you want to do as long as you're not harming others. However, I think that this podcast and specifically the statement in itself is just reducing women to a whole. Like it's reducing women to literally nothing. Like their only purpose on this earth is to provide their bodies and nothing about substance. Like that doesn't talk about all the women who do such great things for society. It's just, oh no, like she's only here to provide intercourse for a man. But saying that women, quote unquote, finesse men into getting resources from them to avoid having intercourse with them is also a very dangerous and almost disgusting statement because you're under the impression that women owe you their bodies and that you, by doing things for them and not getting back, are in some way getting scammed or not getting what you deserve, which is giving very much nice guy incels who can't learn the reason why women don't want to be with them is because they're just horrible people. So that's just a hot take for me. But let's hear what Brittany has to say.
I mean, well, sure, she could tell. She was saying that we're wrong, I guess, about that.
Well,
so you tell us a little bit about yourself. Then.
No, I think you know more about me than I do myself. So you're saying
no,
obviously you do though, because you said that you warn guys about girls like me. So tell me about girls like me.
Just
Humor
women
me.
in general. Like, I mean,
well, no, but no, don't women in general, because you literally specifically said before we got on here
This was an off-camera conversation.
that you did say that
That's true.
you warn guys about girls like me. So now that we're face to face, what kind of girl am I?
Great opening. No notes, really. I think that him saying that, because apparently off camera, he told her that his podcast is about girls like her. And I think that this is a common thought process among toxic men, is that they like to just put women into categories and think that they are just like little Pokemon almost that they can collect and catch, and that they don't actually have any real substance to them. So great opening. Let's get into it.
You're not special. You're like other girls. That's the
I'm
key.
not special.
Like,
So-
you're like other women that are
So
like.
what makes you special then?
I never said I was. But you're trying to say, well, what makes me different from, like, a lot of women operate the way you do.
And how do I operate?
He says that she is not special, and then when she challenges that, he's like, oh well, I never said I was special. But I think that calling yourself special by making this podcast and by voicing your opinions, you are calling yourself special. You're saying that you are giving something to somebody that is worth any sort of substance, which I think in its own original form is like, whatever, like any person who makes YouTube videos thinks that whatever they're saying is at least worth a little bit of something, by getting immediately shutting down and being like, oh, well, I never said I was special and all women are the same. I feel like it's just like a cop out, kind of like he's just trying to shut down her argument when it's like, no, women are strong. You can't just shut down what she has to say. So let's get into what she has to say even more.
In general, what I just said before, women, it's a dance between the two genders. Men are trying to get sex. Women are trying to get resources, time, attention, whatever it is that they're looking for. And a lot of girls play the game better than guys. We talk about this openly on our podcast. And we're teaching guys how to not necessarily get finesse and get what they want out of girls, which a lot of the times is intimacy, but they're not able to get it. But girls are easily able to obtain money, time, resource, attention, whatever it is. Girls are running laps around dudes, which is why podcasts like ours exist.
So, this thought process. Maybe the reason why it's so easy for women to find men to sleep with them versus men trying to find women to sleep with them is because this is going to sound like a general statement, and I don't mean this like men suck, because like I'm a feminist. Like I'm not trying to be like men suck. Like I enjoy men sometimes, but maybe it's the fact that we live in a society where hookup culture is so common, and men a lot of times will give it up, like a lot of men like to say, and then meeting with women will so easily sleep with a woman that they don't even know. And like it's crazy to me, like not to foreshadow or say that that's something that is going to happen, but it's crazy to me that men will invite women to their homes that they barely even know just to sleep with them. Yet women are the easy ones. Interesting. But that aside, saying just the intimacy thing. Like, it's like you can get intimacy without, sleeping with someone. Like, you can be actually emotionally attracted to someone, and that can provide for you a sort of fulfillment, because there are many people who are asexual and there are people who are aromantic. There are many different spectrums of sexuality, and like people don't just, people don't just have intercourse and that's just it. Like, relationships are so much deeper than that. And I think that understanding that, well, this podcast would fall apart very fast. But that aside, let's just continue because I'm talking for too long.
So there's really a lot to unpack here, because my first question to you is, what do you gain from telling girls that they're not special? How does that make you feel? I mean, I know everything is a joke, but I'm asking you a real question. So how does that make you feel? If I insult you, or if I tell you you're not special, you're forgettable, what does that do for me? No, but that doesn't, but that's what I'm saying. No, but I'm saying, what if I call you, if I just say that, again, you're forgettable. That's why I didn't want to do you guys' podcast. But I also don't need to, in a way, kind of try to devalue what you guys have going on.
I'm simply asking her to tell us about herself because we were so incorrect. So tell us about yourself. That's all I'm saying. And then she just went into attacking us. And
no one's attacking you.
You notice how she completely dismantles his argument. She is very well spoken. She calls them out. And instead of them saying, oh, I'm sorry, let's hear you out, he then tries to turn to basically imply that she's being overdramatic, or in a way almost gaslighting her. Like, I only asked you to tell me about yourself and now you're talking about me. Like, and I just think that's such a cop out. Like, I think that he genuinely both of them genuinely dish out so much negativity and hatred towards women, but when that hatred and that negativity gets challenged even a little bit, they break down, because that is really the foundation of the whole incel incel hating women type of person. Like, they will like to say stuff behind a screen, they don't like to be challenged, but the minute that a person breaks down like who they are and breaks down the stuff that they're actually saying, they shut down almost immediately, which is really interesting, and then try to backpedal and be like, oh no, well, I never said that, and like, you're being crazy. And I just think that that's really interesting. And I'll talk more, like, the rest of this podcast, the rest of this clip is really truly shows that these men are, one, very bad at justifying their arguments and can get dismantled very easily. And you also see that the other guy, he tries to explain why she feels the way that she does. And they just don't care because they devalue women's opinions so much. And that's actually a recurring theme in their podcast, is they love to disrespect women. They Photoshop clown emojis over their faces. Even a community post that they made like the other day was reducing women down to Black woman, and they just have a clear disrespect for all women, but specifically Black women. And I believe they both like to just use this narrative and just to kind of fuel the toxic community that is associated with their podcast. They also mentioned briefly, and this was also something that they got called out a couple weeks ago when I first started listening to their podcast because I wanted to see what the tea was, where they basically said that they don't date Black women because they find Black women ghetto and ratchet. And as a Black person who has been referred to as ghetto and ratchet, and I don't know if you've ever heard me speak, or you've ever been around me for long extended amounts of time, but I wouldn't particularly describe myself as someone who is ghetto. Though being ghetto also isn't something that is such a negative. Like, I think that Jackie Aina said it, like, you can, like, ghetto doesn't necessarily mean that that's something that's negative. Like, there is so much fashion that is considered ghetto that is so popular right now. I think that it's so crazy to me that people would use ghetto and ratchet as something that's negative, but it's positive whenever it's trendy, which is also racism in itself. But they've mentioned that they're just very misogynistic, and I'm sure I could probably find many more clips of them being just hateful towards groups of people. And I think that this is kind of the problem with this podcast and the problem with toxic masculinity and misogyny and incel culture. I think that this pandemic that we're in has created a new subgenre of women hating men, or yeah, women hating men, um, to such a strong degree. And I think that these issues and these problems, if they don't go unchecked, um, fester. And these people, like this podcast, get this huge platform of hundreds of thousands of subscribers, so many listeners, and they get a platform, and then they use this platform and they kind of are just so openly misogynistic. The type of content that you willingly consume, and you actually enjoy, says a lot about you as a person. And I think that if you sit down and listen to this podcast and you actually like it and you actually agree with what these guys are saying, one, how are you even watching my channel? Because our thoughts definitely do not align at all. But also, it's like, why do you hate women so much? Why do you feel the need to constantly devalue women and say that, oh, men are supreme, men are the best, men are the reason why the world works the way that it does, and the patriarchy is non-existent, and women deserve lower wages, or the wage gap doesn't exist in the first place? And I think that it's just a certain level of hatred you gotta have for women to just like feel that and then talk about it. And it's even worse that they talk about this stuff and they get praised for it. The concept of hating women, or hating Black women in general, is a subgenre on the internet that gets praised by all these men that are so upset and so vindictive that they haven't been able to be with women. And the chances are because they actually don't like women and probably only see them as a body and not as a physical human being. And maybe that's why you need to go to a podcast to listen about dating advice, because it doesn't take a lot for a woman to actually like you. You know, you just got to be a good person. But I guess some men just don't want to do that, and they instead want to describe themselves as alpha males, who see women as something to conquer, not something to nurture. If you're a Kanye West fan, you know, you get the vibes. But I guess that's kind of it. This podcast, like many of my videos, has made me lose a couple brain cells. So if you wanted to give me back some brain cells, like this video, please. So I feel like that I suffered for a little bit of a reason. Comment down below and let me know your opinions on this podcast, or your opinions on toxic masculinity or incel culture or anything like that. I'd really like to know your opinions, but not if they're mean ones, because I do get sad sometimes. And let me know if you guys like this video in general, because I feel like I feel like I'm embracing my inner, like that one girl on TikTok that just destroys misogynistic men. Such an icon. I feel like I'm channeling my inner her today. There's also an ant infestation in my room right now, so there are a lot of ants on my floor, but we'll ignore that right now. Subscribe to me if that's something you would like to do. I make videos every single week, so if you'd like to be entertained once a week, I will be glad to do that for you. And I guess that's it. So make sure to stay happy, stay healthy, and stay safe. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Bye guys.